to do tonight is I am going to actually trust everyone to hold your hand up, we'll call on you to ask a question. And if it gets to be to where everyone decides they're going to make speeches, I'm going to shut you down because we don't want to be here all night. And if you want to make a speech, go stand in front of the post office and make speeches. Ask your question. I'm going to have each one of the candidates get up. They've got 5 minutes, and they're going to introduce themselves. They're going to tell you why they're running, what they're all about, and we're not going to have any smear campaigns. I don't like smear campaigns. I want to know what you're running for, you know, why you think it's important to run, and what do you have to offer us? We are the ones that you are supposed to be working for. So, after they introduce themselves, I'll open it up to questions. They will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and then you can address the question to whichever candidate you want. They'll have a minute. After they answer the question, I'll give them a minute for rebuttal. We do have a timekeeper back here, and boy, is she strict. She cracks that whip like you wouldn't believe. But this is, you know, we're a small town. We just want to keep it on an even keel. And I don't want a bunch of, well, you know, your candidate did this 40 years ago. I don't care what he did 40 years ago or she did. All I want to know is who they are, what they stand for, which is what everyone should want to know. What do they stand for? How are they going to benefit our county? So remember that when you're asking your questions. Please, please don't make a speech. Just ask the question. Okay? Are we ready?
You got it.
All righty. I'll start down here. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Well, I'm Ron Smith, and it was over 40 years ago I was born, so I was born here in Josephine County. My family's been here a long, long time. I've been involved in our county in a lot of different ways, mostly revolving around land use, forest issues, private property rights. I've been an advocate for private property rights in our county for over 25 years. I strongly believe that property rights are the foundation keys to our liberty and freedom in America. That's why I so tenaciously guard our property rights, because they are the key. Likewise, along the same lines, our access and use of the public lands out there are absolutely paramount for a county like Josephine County. Josephine County is 1,641 or 42 square miles, depending on who you talk to. Most of it's mountainous, forested, with a few river valley flatlands. We have survived for over 150 years by what we produced from the ground here in this county. And we got to get back to that producing from the ground again. It's paramount. It's very important for us as people. So I've been involved in a lot of ways, going back mostly in the Illinois Valley, where my family homesteaded over 100 years ago. There have been a lot of things happen in our county as far as access and use to the forest. I'm sure that if you've been here long enough, you realize that it really has been part of the economic downturn to our county, that we no longer can actually use our renewable resource with trees that are now burning up by the hundreds of thousands that used to fully fund our sheriff department, and which I believe could, if we just even harvest the dead trees that are out there, that could fully fund the harvest the sheriff department. But we'll see if that happens. So I've been involved in all kinds of things, monument proposals, water rights for the Klamath farmers, mining rights for the local miners. All of these things, I believe, are absolutely important for the future of Josephine County, and I will continue to defend those things. I've been a previous small business owner. I've been in management for many, many years. Currently, I serve on the board of the Pomona Granges, which is all the Granges in Josephine County, and I really believe in what the Granges stand for, patrons of husbandry. It's one of the oldest fraternal organizations in the country, established in 1867. that was mostly established primarily to give a voice to rural communities in politics. Actually, I'm the vice chair of the Fruitdale Range. I'm also a member of the Redwood Lions Club and a member of the Josephine County Farm Bureau. As you can see, a lot of things I'm involved in revolve around land. So I think land is actually the key. If you listen, look at history, if you know history, the whole history of the world revolves around land and who's going to control the land and who's going to control the resources. So I'm running because I believe I'm a strong advocate for the people. I'm not running because I'm a politician. I'm running because I'm a concerned citizen, have been involved in a lot of different issues. I was voted Citizen of the Year by the Illinois Valley Cave Junction Chamber of Commerce because of my work in the Illinois Valley back around the year 2001. So I'm well versed in what goes on in our county, very concerned on where we're headed in the future. I want to make sure that we fully fund the sheriff and that we seriously go after this meth and heroin problem in the county. The meth and heroin is just terrible for us. It's really causing a lot of the property crime, it's causing a lot of the homelessness, and it's really affecting our youth. So the meth and heroin, I really strongly want to fund the sheriff fully so we can go after that and stop that scourge of our county. The other thing I like to see stop is stop the smoke. Does anybody enjoy these smoky summers? I don't think we've had a full summer for, what, at least 2 years, 5 years? Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. I mean, and when I see that smoke, when I see those flames, when I see those trees burning up, I think, well, there goes the funding for the county government. There goes the funding for the sheriff. That's terrible. My dad and my family have been in this county a long time. We were ranchers, logger. He was a logger. I've done some mining, so we're well versed in it. The other thing we need to address in this county is affordable housing. Our housing problems are terrible. The commissioners tried to work on something in the county, but the real big burden for affordable housing is going to fall to the city of Grants Pass and the city of Cave Junction because of state law. So what we need in this county as far as affordable housing is some apartments. There was an article in the Courier where there was 1,100 single-family homes built in the last decade and 100 apartment units. Does that seem right? I mean, the builders and developers are more than happy to build a $350,000 home or $450,000 homes, but they don't want to build apartment buildings because the profit's not there for them. So we got to figure out how we're going to get more apartments. There's some good things happening in Cave Junction. So vote for Ron Smith, Josephine County Commissioner.
Yeah. Anyways. Oh, okay. My name is Sandy Casanelli. Most of you in this room know me. I've been a consistent advocate for the citizens of Josephine County for well over a decade. I did it as a commissioner. I just looked out for people's interests, and almost every single, a majority, let's say, of the weekly business sessions after I was in office, I attended. And I'm very vocal, and I have no qualms about telling the commissioners exactly what I think is going on. I usually submit to the record during the weekly business sessions my comments and requests from citizens. So this past February, I thought to myself, I really want to look and see if the commissioners are actually submitting to the record everything that I submit during the weekly business sessions. So I went to the clerk's office and I said, could I please see the monthly commissioners' journals? And there was like deer in the headlights and collective gasp, and I'm saying, am I speaking English? So I repeated it, and I was told, well, what month do you want? I says, well, it's February, how about January? the Commissioner Journal for January. No, we don't have that posted. How about for December last year? No, we don't have that posted. How about October? No. November? No. October? No. September? No. August? No. July? No. June? No. May? No. The clerk's office had not filed the Commissioner's Monthly Journal for 10 months. And so, I'm just saying, well, this is pretty cheesy. How come? And so I was told that it was because of personal issues in the Commissioner's office. Well, if personal issues interrupt the filing of their monthly journal, we've got bigger problems in Josephine County than any of us know about. So I waited till the primary and looked at the list of people that were running, and nobody in Josephine County, of over 80,000 people, decided to run against our appointed clerk. And so I says, oh, drats, maybe, I'll just throw my hat in the ring. So I did. And during the May election, I noticed that there were not posted signs on the Ambassador and the courthouse. Usually it says no electioneering within 100 feet of, the courthouse entrances. And we've done it years, every clerk has done it for years and years and years. So I asked our elected officials, the county commissioners and the clerk. And the clerk was kind enough to send me an 11-page document from the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, that said, although there is no case law, it is our opinion, the Attorney General's opinion, that it violates Article 1, Section 8 of the Oregon Constitution. It's, people's right to electioneer within 100 feet of the courthouse. So I says, okay, that's fine, good, we'll do that. So campaign for the general election comes along, and my guys are real gung-ho, and they put out their signs August 28th. And at one of the forums, we were told that the clerk told us that they had to be removed 60 days from the date of placement. I says, no, this is not right. I've never heard of that before, so I went in and asked about it and was told that Wally Hicks was the one that drafted it. So we'll tell you more because my time is up. So
there's 30 seconds.
There's my pamphlets out in the back. There's a couple of signs. Please vote November 8th. I have
November 6th.
November 6th. Sorry. Yes, thank you. I have. You can sign up. August 16th is the deadline to register to vote, so get out there and vote.
October.
Oh, October, sorry.
Hi, good evening. I'm Rhiannon Hinkles. I am the current Josephine County appointed Josephine County Clerk. I was appointed in June of 2017 by the Board of County Commissioners. I have been with the County Clerk's Office since April of 2006. I have 4 kids raised here. They're being raised here, 2 in high school, 1 that's graduated, and 1 in middle school. My husband is self-employed. We are invested here in the community. I have actually been involved in 23 elections here in Josephine County. I've been mentored by and trained by Georgette Brown, Art Harvey, and Tricia Myers. I know how to run my office. As far as the Commissioner's Journal not being filed, we are the keeper of the record. That's on the Commissioner's office to bring it down to my office. We do not follow up with them. I don't go to Dan and Simon and say, did you sign the journal yet? It's their office. They have things they have to do. So they bring it down when they're ready. And we file it. They bring it down monthly. That's how they do it. And they bring us a stack of everything that they received, everything that's signed. It could be months past, but they bring it down monthly. We get that processed as soon as we can, typically within a day or 2 of them bringing it down. As far as elections, I have done everything in my office from creating ballots all the way down to the tabulation equipment. The signs, as far as election signs are concerned, political campaigning, Wally Hicks had the Department of Justice sent the notice to Wally Hicks, and he said, we are not putting the signs up anymore. So yes, the signs are not posted on the ambassador or the courthouse any longer. The political signs in your yards, he also wrote that up. My office does not provide legal advice. That's something that he strictly does not want. He drew up that, well, Leah Harper, his associate, drew that document up for me to supply the voters and everyone that's interested. I was advised that there were some changes that should be, so I had Wally revamp it and rewrite it. It is posted on my website as of a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago, when Leah did rewrite it and addressed it. So I just ask that you vote for me November 6th. Yes, voter registration deadline is October 16th, and ballots are being dropped in the mail on October 17th. And if you don't have your ballot by like the midweek of the following week, just give my office a call and we'll happily look into it for you. And thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for coming. My name is Dave Daniel. I'm currently Josephine County Sheriff. This is really important that we're all here actually tonight, and it's great that it's being videotaped so others out there can get it. The transparency for your county government is very important, so you know where we stand on issues. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, graduated from Central Catholic High School, came down to the best college in Oregon, which is Oregon State University. No? Okay. Just saying, got a bachelor's in speech communications, bachelor's in science. Finished there, met my lovely bride there, 28 years now, and got my first law enforcement job, which is what I wanted to do, working for the City of Grants Pass Department of Public Safety right here in Josephine County in 1995. I was here for 3 years. My wife and I decided we wanted to try something different. We went to the Oregon State Police. I wanted to see the horizons of Oregon through a windshield of a cruiser. They put me out in Fossil, Oregon, and I don't know if anybody knows where Fossil, Oregon is, but I didn't. And I was a resident trooper, which was a good experience actually for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Not so much having two small little ones that we wanted to raise. So what do? On a phone call, I called back to the Grants Pass DPS, and they hired me back. We moved back to Grants Pass. We've been here ever since. I was able to attain a master's in management degree from Southern Oregon University, which was a fantastic learning experience for me along with all of the other experiences I've had working for city, county, well, at the time, state agencies. So, you know, I think I want to speak from the heart. I ran for sheriff 4 years ago because Josephine County was decimated. And in 2010, it kind of started, or even earlier, a little bit earlier. 2012 hit, and it was flatlined. And it really affected me, and it affected me personally, my friends, my family, this community. I could see it, I could feel it, and you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. My goal really was to be part of the solution. So I threw my name in the ring, in the hat, and ran for election for Josephine County Sheriff because I thought I'd get into a county. I figured I'd go to a county government. And luckily I was successful in that bid, and was very thankful for it. It's been an honor being a Josephine County Sheriff, and truly is a privilege. But it's been a tough road to hoe for the last 4 years. I'm not going to lie to you. Things have been slow. Because, you know, when you're that decimated, you don't have a records division. You don't have much of a patrol division. You have no detectives division. Your capacity in your jail is at 130, which it could be over 260. That's a real problem. So here we go, the building process. How do you start doing that? You got to rebrand. So I changed our organization a little bit. Got a grant for some uniforms. Changed the look of our vehicles to go to a cheaper vehicle as opposed to painting them. We just put vinyl on them now and change that brand. Because it's very important to me that the citizens receive that professional public safety service. That's really what it's all about. It's not just getting a deputy that rolls up on your thing and says, sorry, that's a neat report, but I gotta go. And that was happening early on. But we've changed that. Just recently I applied for a $600,000 grant and received that for the investigation and creation of an illegal marijuana task force. That's something that I've been up in Salem barking for for over 2 years now since the passage of Measure 91. It's been we've done some great things as far as increasing the staff in our jail. I had to go out publicly and ask for a public safety corrections levy. I didn't want to. I didn't want to go after any type of a property tax. That wasn't my goal. I felt I had to. I felt it was my obligation, because where we were going to be if that didn't pass was going to be in a hole. We're looking at between 60 and 95, somewhere in there, people in the jail, possibly shutting down the patrol division. And that's a scary thought for all law enforcement in Josephine County. You have to have some place to incarcerate these individuals. And so I'm running short on time here. We've done some good things. We've done some great things, and I can leave some flyers out back for you to show you specifically what we've done. Looking at budgeted staff, we've gone from 51 to 87. Thank you. 51 to 87. Hours of service from 8 to 12. Jail capacity back in 2013 was 95. Now we're 185. Arrestees booked 2,600 in 2012-13, up to 5,200 this last fiscal year. So you can only imagine. Dispatch call for service is astronomical. 10,000 in 2012-13, up to almost 21,000 calls for service this year. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering some questions.
Well, my name's Darren Fowler, and I'm running for County Commissioner. And you probably know some things about me. That I've been the mayor of Grants Pass for the past 6 years. That's part of 10 years of volunteering in my community, in politics, and almost 50 years in the area. My parents moved here when I was 4 years old, and I grew up here, went to local schools, met my wife during a middle school summer, and we ended up getting married when we were 21, raising our family here, starting a small business here the past 20 years. And there'll be more details in the voters pamphlet. And I have to read from notes. I've got a busy life running a business and performing the duties of mayor, so forgive me for that. But I'd rather talk to you about the differences between Darren Fowler and Ron Smith. I did not wake up one day and say, I think I'll run for county commissioner with no experience. I've been learning by experience, putting in the time, 10 years of understanding government budgeting, learning meeting dynamics in a government setting, understanding people and their concerns, and attending Board of Commissioner meetings. My opponent has run for office multiple times, but has never volunteered on any budget committee or for a committee or commission in the county. I've never run into him at a commissioner's meeting. I believe now that I have a better understanding of representative government. Not just my opinions, but what will benefit the majority of citizens. And that means researching each subject, asking the relevant stakeholders, working towards consensus while still being decisive. My opponent thinks the answer to every problem is cut more trees, or preserve property rights even at the cost of being an unacceptable neighbor. The Board of Commissioners is already fighting for more local control and input on forest and fire management. We need to build and maintain roads, because that's a double-edged sword. If you can log and maintain those roads, you can get in and fight those fires. We need to make changes in the mining regulations, and the Board of Commissioners have been working on that. They've been building a region-wide coalition to change the policies of state and federal government. And with a friendlier federal government, we actually have a chance to change some of those policies. The board has also attempted regulating commercial cannabis operations, even working towards taxing each plant like we used to do with trees, by the plant, so property taxes are not the only funding source for law and code enforcement. What else does he think we should try? Does he think we should have no rules limiting what can be done on properties? I also want to take this moment to invite my opponent to run his campaign with integrity and by the rules. ODOT has these regulations on their website that temporary signs, including political signs, are allowed on private property within view of the state highways with the following restriction. The sign is limited to 12 square feet. That means 3 feet by 4 feet. My opponent has many signs that are larger than that. The county's website also echoes that. Signs must be 12 square feet or less. And so I invite you to take your signs down, replace them with the proper size sign.
Mr. Fowler?
I also think the people of this
Excuse me,
community.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes,
We want to know what your platform is.
And it's right-
Not
I will get to it.
slaving the opponent.
I will get
okay?
to it. There's also been a recent move to do anti-political signs. And I don't know who's in charge of putting these up. But someone has started putting these up. And so I'm looking for someone to explain where those are coming from. Because I have to explain these signs to my daughter, my 5-year-old grandson, the grown kids that I coached in soccer, and the kids I teach in Sunday school. What exactly do people have to fear? I'll tell you who needs to fear Commissioner Darren Fowler. Criminals and transients that think our county is an easy mark. And I would just like to invite all of the candidates to run their campaigns with integrity and honesty. I love this community and the people that have chosen to live their lives here. I promise that if I'm elected, I will continue to serve this community with honesty and integrity, using proven leadership and my experience to focus on the main purpose of government, to keep people safe and to protect their ability to pursue the American dream. Thank you.
My name is John Knapp. I'm running for Josephine County Sheriff. That's the obvious part. I grew up here in Josephine County, graduated from Hidden Valley High School in 1979, and then I enlisted in the United States Air Force. The United States Air Force taught me structure, organization, morals, values, code of conduct, how a person is supposed to live and present themselves. I did that for 4 years, free as a sergeant. I then went to work with the Salvation Army for 15 years as a lieutenant and as a captain. Again, morals, values, integrity. I was the budget officer for the southern half of the state of California. I helped every Salvation Army down there write their budget. And then I was the guy that traveled, auditing them to make sure that they weren't wasting any money on stuff they weren't supposed to be wasting it on. That they were following policy, that they were following procedure. And then I would do my audits and hold people accountable for their actions. After 15 years of that, moving my wife and little kids all over the place, I went to Maricopa County and I became the chaplain of the sheriff's office there. And they said, why don't you come work in our jail? So I went and worked in the jail. And then they had an opening for the street. And I thought, from law enforcement in the Air Force to law enforcement in Maricopa County, Arizona, I'm in for that. So I went to another academy. I was a certified law enforcement officer in Maricopa County for 18 years, 14 of those as a sergeant. As a sergeant, you're responsible for a squad. The squads that I was appointed to most often weren't your normal squads. But I worked patrol. I was a patrol sergeant in 3 sections of Maricopa County. I was a sergeant over property and evidence, where we take all of the evidence for the crimes and secure it, and we have to maintain it, catalog it, and take very good care of it so the evidence cannot be tainted and we don't lose any trials because of misplaced or mistagged or misidentified evidence. I worked in pre-employment services. I had a squad. I was a supervisor there. We interviewed everybody that wanted to be a detention officer, a civilian employee, a posseman, a deputy, a detention officer. I reviewed every one of those applications while I was a supervisor of that unit to make sure only the top-notch people got employed. I did internal affairs investigations on employees that decided it was okay for them to cross that thin blue line and do things that they were not allowed to do. I wrote the investigation, I wrote the report, I testified in their hearings. In many cases, we terminated the employees because a thin blue line is not a line to protect officers from the public. The thin blue line is a line to protect the public from bad officers. I'm running, and And I set this in motion 5 years ago when I set my retirement date to get in line with this cycle. I'm running for sheriff because I believe that I have the qualifications and the experience. I talked to you about my management experience, 30 years in management. I have an associate's in ministry, a bachelor's in public safety administration, a master's in disaster preparedness, a master's in business. I've run small businesses. I've run the books and the finance and the disaster relief for the Salvation Army. I've run units and squads and organizations for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. My last appointment was court security. I supervised 30 deputies, 100 detention deputies, 2 civilian staff that took 500 inmates to court every day. That was my job. I know how to manage people. I know how to run organizations. I know how to do budgets. I know how to take the very limited tax dollars that you're giving us, and you're giving it to us, maybe not willingly, but you're giving it to us, and we need to use that money more efficiently, more effectively, and quit wasting it. It's nice to have beautiful cars and shiny new uniforms and all of that stuff, but if you don't have butts to put in the seats and go patrol at night and on the weekends, what good are those cars? So I'm Jonathan Knapp. I'm bringing to you qualifications and experience, and I'm running for sheriff.
Okay, I'm going to trust you all, because normally, as you come in the door, I give you a piece of paper and a pen and say, write your questions down, and we collect them. So, ask honest questions, not nasty questions, okay? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm your first victim, right?
Yeah, my first victim.
Economic Collaboration Committee. What would you do to make the Economic Collaboration Committee productive? 3 quick examples and I get off.
Who's the question for?
If both people running for commissioner.
Okay,
So that end of the table and there.
okay.
Examples. One member was appointed as an
Ask the
ambassador.
question.
Okay, I've asked it. Let me repeat it. What would you do to make the Economic Collaboration Committee productive?
Well, thanks for the question, and we just had this discussion between the City Council and the Board of Commissioners because we felt like they were not addressing what we'd hoped they were addressing. And I think there was a little miscommunication about priorities. We had hired a company, jointly paid for by the county and the city, to look into what kind of things we could identify that would help us with economic development. And that report from Eco Northwest was pretty lame. We were pretty disappointed by it. It came with a lot of general things like, you guys have to work together. And we're like, yeah, that's why we hired you to help us work together. What things can you identify? They didn't identify much. So we had the committee themselves identify a list of priorities, and the commissioners and council kind of told them the ones we didn't like, but we didn't help prioritize the ones that we did like. And so we're going to get together soon. It's mid-October. We just scheduled a meeting. We're going to reprioritize that and make sure that they have good direction, because we want to be able to use that information to help create jobs, create internships, create opportunities for our kids to stay here instead of have to leave to another city to make a living or another community to make a living. And we want to help grow those ones that are already working well, give them the opportunity to expand.
Maybe at 30 seconds, just say 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, because I've been trying to do it, but I don't want to interrupt you.
I think the best thing government can do to make economic development more effective is get out of the way. Quit over-regulating us, quit. Government's job is not to create businesses. Businesses' job is to create businesses. Government needs to get out of the way. I wouldn't put the city and the county together to begin with. They're 2 different entities, they're 2 different issues. The city has its urban growth boundaries, the county doesn't have an urban growth boundary. 2 different a set of rules for development. When you put those 2 together, you're going to have conflict. Government needs to get out of the way, and let free enterprise be free. Our problem in America is we're overregulated. We have too much government. We don't have enough freedom. Business is not free to do what it wants. They're overregulated. So creating more regulation, spending taxpayers' dollars on some committee from up north to try to decide how we're going to live here in Josephine County and how we're going to develop jobs in Josephine County is kind of wacky to me. I don't understand it. I mean, who knows better than what's going to work here in Josephine County than the people here in Josephine County? I think the biggest thing we need to do is get out of the way. Let government get out of the way. I'm not a big fan of having this county and the city collaborate. Government that governs least governs best. That's what I believe. So we need less government interference in the free enterprise. And if we'll do that, I think business will take over. If we cut the regulations and streamline the process for business startup,
30 seconds.
we're going to have more businesses start up. Look how much money we poured out to these different organizations and what has it produced in the last 20 years. I really don't see it. I don't see the productivity there. Let free enterprise be free and let business be free. Get out of the way, government.
Yeah, that just shows a lack of understanding of how government works for the people and by the people. Because we are the ones that represent you. And the city and the county have to work together. We don't have any other partners. We have the city of Cape Junction, the city of Grants Pass, and then some communities, and then the entire county. And so we have to work together. It's the only way we can be successful. And we're just trying to identify the best ways to move forward. We're not trying to control people's lives. We want to unleash all their potential.
30 seconds.
Government control. You ever broke the word government down? Government, govern, and mint is mind. Government is mind control. So we don't need any more of that. We have enough of that today. Why do we have problems in this county? Isn't it overregulation? Isn't it government interference in business?
Yeah.
Well, how is government going to solve that problem? Get out of the way. It's not complicated. Let business be free.
Mark?
I'd like to know how the commissioner candidates feel about these three issues. County manager, remember that one? Taxing cannabis and wine, and future tax levies. And by the way, I want to know how they feel about integrity, because Aaron Fowler has one of my signs. Obviously, you took it. I want to know about integrity of elected officials.
Nobody took those signs. They were not back on the porch.
Well, his supporters are
Hey,
still
hey, hey!
No.
We're not doing that.
Yep.
Real simple.
So, restate the question, Mark.
county manager, future tax levies, and taxing cannabis and vineyards.
Okay. County manager been shot down 3 times. I know there's a push behind the scenes to bring that back. I think it's a poor form of government because he's under contract. You can't get rid of him. We had a city manager we had to pay big bucks to send down the road. We don't need a county manager. What we need is honest commissioners. Cannabis or property. What was the second question?
Taxing cannabis and vineyards.
Well, you know, how can you tax one agricultural crop over another? I think that's a court case just waiting to happen. You're gonna tax cannabis, or you're gonna tax hay? You're gonna tax apples? What are you gonna tax? We have a right to grow in this state. We have a right to farm in this state. So are we gonna tax Fort Benoit Farm for his corn? I mean, I don't think that's the answer. Property taxes is not the answer. You got to break down the land ownership in Josephine County. Only 8.7% of the land is taxed at the high tax rate. That's all. Only 8.7% of the land, that's private property. The vast majority of our county is forest land, 68%. You take city, state, and county, and nonprofit, that's 73% of the land we get no tax on, none. But yet that land, the 73% used to support everything. We have a problem, don't we, folks? All right, and there you go, government regulations. There we're right back to that deal again. So taxes will never work long-term to support the county. It will not work long-term because we just don't have the tax base. If we're not, compare Jackson County to Josephine County. If you just compare the two, you'll see why Jackson County has a fully funded sheriff, fully funded police, and a fully funded government. Josephine County just does not have the land base to support taxes. Taxing. You take away one of the big incentives for all these people to move here is low tax rates. I don't believe taxes are going to solve our problem. Thanks.
So with the county manager, that's certainly up to the people to decide, but I don't think it's the best way to run the county. I think you have representatives that you elect, and you find out if they're qualified, and then you check to see what good job they did, or what a bad job they did. And so I think it's a good form of government. It can be dysfunctional when there's one person without experience, or one person with an agenda, and the other two are trying to do what's best for our community. And so it has a chance to not be fully functional, but I still think it's the best form. I think with cannabis, it's like trees. We tax trees differently than we tax grapes. Cannabis is a new product that just became legal, and it is one that is proved to make some people bad neighbors. It is something that we are supplying the rest of the state with some of the best marijuana, and they don't send us any money to help do the enforcement. So we need to go after that revenue at the state level, because you don't make much revenue at the dispensaries here because people already know a guy. You're not going to be able to get it from there. And you shouldn't have to get it from just property taxes. But I think our levy amount is kind of in the right place now. We're still last and second to last in the state as far as revenue because we don't have the base. But it is enough to do what county government should do and what the sheriff's office should do. And so we need to work within that much, or that amount, and not go to the property tax for any more. But we do need to find other ways to fund, which could be the cannabis, could be getting more revenue out of the state on the dispensary side. And the last part is, yeah, this sign was dropped off on my porch. One of, I don't even know who dropped it off. I appreciated them dropping it off. I started looking around and saying this is not the way we want to run a campaign.
Do you guys have a rebuttal?
I rebuttal. As soon as you get Greg Walden, Kate Brown, Newt Bueller to take down their 4x8s, I'll take mine down. Thank you.
That's the old argument my mom used to say, hey, if everybody else is doing it, do you think that's an argument, Dan? And I'm like, well, yeah, everybody else is going out and doing this. And she's like, no, you should play within the rules because you have integrity.
Next question? Yes, ma'am.
Could you address it to the county clerk position?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know you had mentioned both Danny Casanelli and Engel, that regarding the comments, citizens' comments that go into public record and where do they end up. And that's really important to the to people that go to commissioner meetings. I guess my question, I need a little more clarification from Ms. Hinkle, as far as you kind of were giving it, do you believe that that's part of your job description, that when things are handed in from the commissioners, that it's your job description to make sure they're recorded? Whose job it is? It seems like you were, I want to know, is that part of your job description?
So yes, recording the documents when they're supplied to my office by the commissioner's office, yes, we record them. We file them, we store them. So, is that?
Well, no, well, yeah, I know you record them, but are you working together with the commissioners? So when comments are put into public record, are you working with the commissioners? Because it sounds like there was 8 months, at least 8 months, that comments from the citizens that are really important for the record, that they don't seem to get from about 100 feet from where the commissioners are down to your county clerk. How important is that to you to make sure those things are recorded for citizens to go back and check those documents?
So they're always available in the commissioner's office before they're brought down to my office. You can always go get them from their office. I receive them when the commissioners, monthly, when the commissioners brings me the month of whatever they have there, anything that's in there, any minutes, journals, anything. And yes, it's recorded in my office and filed in my office when we receive it.
I'd like to respond.
Yes.
I'd like to answer the same
Oh,
question.
yes.
You know something?
Are you asking a question or just?
No, the question was about the Commissioner's Monthly Journal. It is the duty of the clerk to record those and have them available for the public. When I was a commissioner, John in the office, so we'll mention him specifically, used to call the commissioner's staff when I was a commissioner and said, come on, let's get the journal signed off on, get the commissioners to sign off on the journal. And so it was, a reminder to the commissioners, come on, let's get the monthly journal to the clerk's office. I don't know why they're not doing it now, but that's the way it was when I was a commissioner. And you know what? It's grueling. You have to go read through the whole minutes, and all the minutes, and you have to make sure they're accurate and everything, and nobody wants to do them. So the thing about it is the right of the citizens of this county to be able to look at the minutes, not only of the weekly business sessions, but all the legal meetings, everything. And it's important. And it's a function of the clerk's office that should be done, monthly. But let's face it, having it delinquent 10 months, me going in there and trying to find out whether my comments are entered into the record, you know what? It's not appropriate. If the clerk's office is deficient in this, what else are they deficient in?
So we do record them when we receive them, like I said, and like I said, you can get them at any time in the commissioner's office. It does take time. As far as my staff, John, yes, he calls the commissioner's office and requests missing exhibits. We do not call them and request them to bring down Commissioner's Journal. They bring it every first of the month. We have a procedure. There's a procedure in place. So there's nothing that's deficient about the procedure. My staff does not call and bother them about when they're going to bring it down. It comes on the first of the month. If the first falls on a holiday, they bring it down the next business day.
Oh, well, yes, Ms. Hinkle says that they do it monthly, but when I went there in February, they hadn't, filed it for 10 months. It's not monthly if you're deficient 10 months.
Okay, you had a question?
I was just going to ask, what exactly does the county clerk's office do? What is the scope of, you say it's possible, I just don't, I know that you file documents and you handle, like, elections. What is the full scope of the job?
So, did you want to go first?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So we do recording, land recording. You buy a property, you refinance anything. We record documents, we issue marriage licenses, we process passport applications. We are actually the only facility in Josephine County that does process passport applications. We are the mediator, the clerk of the board for the Board of Property Tax Appeals. We do elections. From ballot creation through tabulation, through everything, filings. We are the keeper of the record, Commissioner's Journal. We do lots of things. We assist the public all day long.
Anything that has to do with property, deeds and, all that sort of stuff is also recorded. They do a fine job, I guess.
Next question? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question for the two candidates for commissioner. The recent purchase of the land there by the river, by the fairgrounds, if we're such a broke county, why do we purchase land that Simon Harris says we don't know what we're gonna do with it?
I have no idea because they didn't want to tell anybody why they're buying that land, but, yeah, I'm kind of a funny guy because I just believe the Constitution says that government shouldn't be in the business or owning land. Really, if you think about it, part of the problem we have in this county is there's too much non-taxable land. Okay, take our federal land, take our county land, take our state land, all of that, no tax. So the more of that that's bought by government, the less tax base we have. So no, I don't know what they're going to do with that land. Maybe it's Simon's Air future home. I don't know, but that nobody's told me.
Yeah, it's really tough in government to tip your hand and say, hey, we'd like to buy that property. And here's why. But I think there's a lot of good uses for it now that the milk is spilled. That could be used as part of the investment of the county to put a fourth bridge in, because it lines up with Lincoln Road there and Allen Creek. It also is contiguous to the fairgrounds and to the maintenance area of the county. And so they could use it to put in a hotel with a conference room to help enhance the fairgrounds area and get a nice place on that side of the river. And so there's things that could be done with the property now that the milk is spilled. I'm not sure, of course, why they had that. I asked them at the time, do you have a reason for that? And Simon said, we'll talk about it sometime. And it hasn't come up since then. So I'm curious to what the future of that could be. It was a reasonable price for the property. It is contiguous. It's in the way of the potential fourth bridge. And we have to come up with some of our own skin in the game when the city and county goes for that bridge. And so that could be our skin, having that property. But that's also like 10 years in the future, 15 years if there is a fourth bridge coming. And so they could also wait for the market to change and try and sell it. But I think enhancing the fairgrounds and doing the hotel would be the best.
Yeah, this is for the sheriff candidates, and I listened to an interview on the radio this morning. I became really disturbed. I spent my day verifying some facts. I have verified that the County Insurance Services, CIS, recently conducted an investigation into sexual harassment in the sheriff's office. They confirmed an environment existed that it took place. I know Deputy Webb was terminated for sexual harassment, and I understand there's currently other things going on. My wife has been a victim of sexual harassment, and I kind of have a zero tolerance, and this is an uncomfortable question. But I have heard people are fearful of reprisal. So I've talked with county legal counsel, and there's no formal reporting policy within the county for it. There is no way that individuals can be protected. It just kind of happens. So could either of the two candidates address this subject, which is uncomfortable, where if a woman gets up to work and goes to work to provide for her family, she goes into a hostile environment and is not protected? How is that going to get fixed? It is my part, and I can't speak to that particular situation. Okay, I just can't go down into the weeds and get into the details of what Mr. Rice is talking about. My involvement when it comes down to being informed of a sexual harassment or any type of harassment, workplace harassment, is to investigate. Sometimes the sheriff's office would investigate, sometimes human resources might investigate, sometimes you might go to an outside entity to investigate. And so I can tell you in that particular case, it was done. And it went to an outside entity to go to an investigation. And Mr. Rice stated the result, and that's really about all I can say about that particular situation, and I apologize.
I came from a very large agency. We have policies and procedures in place to prevent things, or at least to deal with things like that. You can't prevent those. You can't prevent crime. You can reduce it, and you can reduce that kind of behavior. Josephine County does not have a sexual harassment in the workplace policy in a form where an employee who feels that he or she is the victim of sexual harassment can go to somebody and report it. In the sheriff's office, you go to the sheriff. In the clerk's office, you go to the clerk. In the county commissioner's office, I guess you roll the dice and pick one of the commissioners. Well, what if that's the person harassing you? Now what do? We need a policy that says that employees can go to somebody at HR, somebody in the county, some legal representative of the county, whoever it is, to report those abuses. We need a truthfulness policy. If you lie, you die. If you lie during investigation, we fire you. If you're using alcohol on the job, we fire you. We need a code of conduct that says this behavior will not be tolerated. And if that behavior is condoned and accepted and joked around the water cooler, you'll never get rid of it. My goal as your sheriff is to get rid of that behavior. The CIS said after their report, there's a strong sexual culture in the sheriff's office. That culture was not there before Dave Daniel got elected.
There actually is. A little dirty. There actually is a policy. You can, and it is written. And as a matter of fact, I went to Lexipol, an outside firm, is one of my promises, because the policies of the Josephine County Sheriff's Office hadn't been reviewed for over 10 years. So I went out, we hired a firm, Lexipol, that's California-based. They do literally daily updates with our policy and procedure. We've completed that entire process during my tenure, and now we have
30 seconds.
Thank you. A full new policy that's updated regularly. And there is county policy that they can go to HR and make those complaints away from whatever department within the county to do that, make those complaints.
And my understanding from county legal counsel is there is no policy.
For the sheriffs, I would like to hear some short-term and long-term goals for the police and county.
For what?
For your, what is your short-term and your long-term goal as sheriff?
I'll go first. My short-term goal is to get patrol 24/7. I believe that that's a priority in the sheriff's office. It's something that can be done. It's something that we have the money for. I get told all the time, we can't do it, there isn't any money. Okay, thanks to you and your jail levy, $7 million funds the jail. $4.8 million funds the rest of the sheriff's office. If he can't find a way to do patrol with $4.8 million, we're using the money in the wrong places. The priority of the sheriff's office is to put butts in the seat, boots on the ground, get out there and answer calls for service. Secondly, we'll take care of all the other things. It's great to be able to say, we can handle your concealed weapons permit in 3 days now versus a month. I'll make you wait for concealed weapons permit. I want you to have it. I'll make you wait for that if it makes a difference of somebody calling 911 because of domestic violence at 2 a.m. in the morning and they can't get a deputy out of bed to go to their house and help that person out. So short-term patrol, and then to rebuild the volunteers so we have people to help do the accident investigations, that we have people that'll help do the, somebody's phone, that we have somebody that'll help do the posse wagon. You know, if a deputy arrests somebody in Cave Junction, they got to put them in the car and drive all the way downtown to book them.
30 seconds.
So let's get volunteers that are properly trained and equipped and staffed, that they can go out to Cave Junction and pick up the bad guy so the deputy can stay on patrol and do the job that he or she was hired to do.
Thank you. Good, absolutely fantastic question. Short-term goals we're still gaining ground. The short-term goal is to get us up to where the positions that we're budgeted. I still have 7 corrections deputies to hire. Now I'm looking at hiring 8, possibly 9, based on personnel in the patrol division. So, and also getting one more person in the front records office to answer those incoming non-emergent calls. That's really the short term of what we're looking at, and it's not an easy task. It's very difficult to find the right people. I've gone over 500 applications I've received for a corrections deputy. So it's few and far between, and I hope the well isn't getting dry locally, so we're trying to branch that out. The long-term goals, absolutely, 24/7 is the ultimate goal. And to be honest with you, that's the primary reason I'm running, is to get us there. Right now, it's easy to say that you can't. You say you can't do 24/7, but you have X amount. But the reality is, at what point do we start taking a step backwards in time? We start losing the trust of the people when we don't answer those calls, because there's only 2 or 3 people, the 2 deputies on in any particular time. So we stop handling those calls. So we don't get the support. The next levy's not passed. That's the scary part. So there's a balance there, and it's a business balance of service that the deputies can provide. I'm currently in negotiations, and have been for over a month.
30 seconds.
Thank you. For over a month with the Oregon State Police to try and get their dispatch services from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It really helps us both, and we have a good partnership with OSP and the Grants Pass Police. And I think I got them. So with 3 of the new positions, I'm looking at an 11 to 7 service to start working on some of these nighttime issues.
One of the easiest ways to do it in an department our size is proper management of staff. Our deputies work 312s. 312s are great. If you're a deputy, you get 4 days off. Anybody in here not want 4 days off in a row? But we work 7 to 7. Now if you took those same deputies and you put them on 8s, they would work 7 to 3, and the swing squad would work 3 to 11. You'd have 4 more hours of coverage with the same deputies without impacting your budget. Management of personnel.
We actually don't work 312s. It rotates every 2 weeks. So there's a 2-day off in the middle of the week, and then there might be a 3-day weekend. So it really rotates every month. But we don't forget about some of those after hours calls for service. You have the after hours calls for service of the dead bodies at night that we need to go to. The after hours calls for service of that disturbance in the middle of the night that no one just can go to, but we do. So you have to consider the big picture of managing your personnel so you don't burn them out, so they're not making stupid mistakes and increasing liability for the organization. So it's a very big picture when you run an organization this size with the many different divisions that we have.
Jonathan, do you have a rebuttal?
I think that
was it. Yeah, I'll start the next one.
Okay. You have a question?
Okay, I'm Captain Danielle Electrical, and I'm in the emergency service field, and I worked or volunteered for the Sheriff's Department under Gilbertson and a little bit under Dave Daniel. And I had an incident in, I think it was 2011 or, yeah, about 2011, under Gilbertson, where it was a sexual assault and domestic violence with my ex-husband. He left for a year, and he came back to the house after a year, and the sheriff said, and I was a volunteer, and the sheriff removed me from the property, and he came in and he destroyed my home. He burned everything and stole everything from my business that was there. It was a child development center for 20 years, and the place was gutted because the sheriff asked me to remove myself from the property over the weekend and asked me to leave. It was my home and my business. The sheriff that came out told him that he had just gone through a divorce, and he said, just take everything that she has. and I had to leave for the weekend and show up at family court for... Huh? Anyway, my question is, I'm still in fear of the sheriff's department. I don't feel safe in my home when I call them to come out. So when I was working at the evidence yard, that was my job, to help process crime scenes. I was asked to turn in my badge. I don't have even an answer why. When Dave Daniel came on, he didn't want the property crimes unit. I don't even know if he understood what I was doing there, but anyway, that's irrelevant. You don't have to answer that question, Dave. I just want to know what you're going to do to protect the citizens, because I still feel in fear. I need to know that you're there when I call.
Yeah. First, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Knapp, I think, but I think, ma'am, I think we're on the same page. And I'm sorry, I don't know your situation, and I apologize for that. I think you do have a couple of people up here that are dedicated law enforcement professionals that want to do the right thing. I don't know the specifics of your situation, and again, I'm sorry. Come down to the sheriff's office if you want to reinvestigate and talk to me about it, and you want to maybe get back in and volunteering and helping out to build some of that trust. I welcome it. Okay, thank you.
And I too am terribly sorry that you had to go through that. We talked about the thin blue line, and if somebody showed up and did something, whether it was a sheriff or a deputy that was inappropriate, you know, we have to deal with those things. And it sounds like that was quite a bit later. And I would hope that the deputies that we have now are very professional at their responses and their dealings with the public. So I'm sorry you went through that. And I hope too, like Dave, that right now the staff we have is a much better staff, better trained and better equipped to handle your situation. And I too would welcome you back.
Next question. Yes, Tim?
This is Mr. Daniel, current sheriff. On a few occasions that I have the occasion to watch you speak, but notice that you have a right-hand trimmer. My question, have you been diagnosed with anything that's nerve damage or any other debilitating disease? I don't see it shaking as much today as it has in the past. Are you taking medication for that?
Respectfully, sir, that's none of your business.
No personal slam. You got a question, not a question, ask it.
That's not a slam.
It isn't. It's not a personal question, really. It's like call a doctor. Okay, the man works for us. We don't work for him.
How about this? How about, even though I have a bachelor's of science in speech communication, maybe I get nervous in front of crowds.
Okay. I just don't want it to be a situation where the perpetrator would over here standing beside me with a gun and you're standing trying to chase you. Who you gonna hit? I thought I'd ask that question.
Okay. Yeah, just another question directed at the sheriff and candidate, Jonathan Knapp. Sheriff, I just want to know, maybe you could let people know a little bit about the commissary money. I think I know a little bit about it, where if the prisoners, they get monies and you know, then they have some money saved up for certain things that you use for the sheriff's department. Could you explain where your monies from the commissary went this past year or the last year and a half? And then to address Jonathan Knapp, where that money, where he thinks that money should go, or if you have differences of opinion.
Sure, Judy. Good question. Commissary funds are funds that are raised from the inmates. The inmates buy toiletries or a snack of some sort. And you probably all don't know this, but there is such a thing as called Oregon jail standards. And the Oregon Jail Standards was set up by the Oregon State Sheriff's Association for universally for all the jails in Oregon. And we all abide by those jail standards. So they set up the different divisions or issues, what the inmate needs to be treated with or what they have to have to stay out of liability issues. The Oregon Jail Standards state that commissary funds can be used for basically safety and security of the facility, can also be used for programs, can also be used for equipment, can also be used for books and reading programs, things like that. So there's a fund there from the inmates that the inmates pay into to help the organization, safety and security primarily of the inmates and also of the deputies. That fund had been growing and growing and growing over time, and we hadn't tapped into it. So we looked for a place to spend some money on that for the betterment of the facility and the safety of the inmates. So what I did is I purchased a video system, a camera system in the jail. It was antiquated, it was getting bad, we were getting lines, we were getting screens, cameras were going down. It was built, back in 2000, put in 2000 when the jail was built, and away we go. So that was one use for it. The second one was a body scanner. I leveraged a company with 10 other sheriffs in the Oregon State Sheriff's Association because drugs were coming into the jail. I had to stop the drugs getting into the jail. A death of an inmate, an in-custody death, is one of the highest liabilities we can face, and we couldn't have it. To date, since we've got that system, we've found drugs, we've found knives, so we're keeping basically the facility safe. I think that's it.
I'll respectfully disagree with what the commissary funds can be used for. The county budget even says expenditures from this fund are for the benefit of the inmates. Now we can argue what's the benefit of the inmate, but if you've got an inmate that buys a candy bar and some envelopes to write home and stuff, and they contribute $5 into the commissary fund, doesn't it make sense that the benefit of the inmate is that $5 is used to buy reading material, NA material, games for them to play, things that they actually benefit from, not maintenance, upkeep, and repair. That's items that you budget for the building over a long course of time. But even if you want to say that you can spend the money on that, it was $160,000 in the commissary fund. The body scanner was $155,000. Okay, now the money's gone. That's great. Except we also went out and spent $464,258 on cameras in a fund that had no money. So the county had to loan the sheriff's office the money, and now we owe the county $363,600 from the inmate commissary fund that has to be paid back in 4 equal payments over the next 4 years. So for the next 4 years, the inmates don't get the benefit from the money they're putting in, and we spent money that we don't have. And I don't know about you, but as sheriff, spending money that we don't have is not a fiscal standard that I accept.
We don't repay it. The inmates repay it. All we did was borrow at no interest from the county general fund to make this happen. No taxpayers' dollars go into this. So if I have a camera system that's antiquated and needs to be replaced, and I don't have to ask the taxpayers to pay that, and it's for the safety, which is ultimately the #1 priority of the inmates, I don't. Thank you. I don't understand why I wouldn't do that. I mean, if you're not going to taxpayers and it's increasing the safety and security of the facility, I've got books. We've got programs. We've got treatment programs. We have people coming in for mental health and counselors and otherwise. We do a lot for the inmates. I don't want to do too much. It needs to be somewhat of a miserable place to be. But in reality is, I thought it was a very smart fiscal move, so the taxpayers didn't pay.
The problem with that is, it's our inmates putting the money in for their benefit.
Right.
For the next 4 years, they are not going to benefit. And I can tell you, the inmates are not going to generate $100,000 a year for the next 4 years to pay it back with a surplus that's going to allow them to have stuff. It took years to build it up to the $160,000. So, yeah, it's easy to take their inmates. After all, they're only inmates, which are, remember, innocent until proven guilty.
Proposition 105, sanctuary cities. Present time, the sheriff does not support sanctuary city proposition. That's against the leader, I understand. Question is, to each sheriff candidate, how would each candidate for sheriff respond to that difference?
Well, I'm not the sheriff, and they didn't come and ask me to sign the letter. But had I been the sheriff, I would have signed the letter. One of the many qualifications that I have is I am a 287G ICE officer, or I was until President Obama took it away. 287G was a federal code that said local law enforcement officers could enforce immigration. So amongst my shadow box and all my badges and qualifications, I have my immigrations and customs enforcement. I'm all for cracking down on people who are in our country illegally. We are a nation of laws. And so the sanctuary state doesn't cut it with me. Sanctuary cities don't cut it with me. And we got rid of our ICE contract. And I talked with a representative from ICE this week. ICE had a contract with the Josephine County Sheriff's Office where they wanted to house 30 inmates, up to 30 inmates a day at $100 a day for $90,000 a month. In the report that I read from the Sheriff's Office, it was a $45,000 a year contract. There's a big difference in $45,000 a year and $90,000 a month. We gave away $1 million of possible bed rental income by canceling our ICE contract, but that's okay, because we'll just ask you for more tax money, right? You're willing to pay the tax money, so why do we need to take money from the government?
No way.
30 seconds.
I would not have canceled the contract. I will, if elected, I will renegotiate with ICE to open that contract back up, to put those inmates back in our jail, and I would support 105.
That's a no-brainer.
That was a sticky wicket. I too support 105. I don't know that 105 ultimately is going to really make any real change. Yeah, it could repeal 181, but there's another House bill that backs. So I don't know that it's going to do what everybody thinks it's going to do. I do not agree with the sanctuary city designation in the state of Oregon right now. I'm hopeful that someday down the road that can be repealed. I know we're talking about, one press release that was written by one sheriff. In a little bit of a bigger picture, you're talking about the Oregon State Sheriff's Association, which once again has to represent itself very strong. We have to stay united. There were 16 sheriffs that said, yeah, I'll sign that letter. There were, obviously, the rest of the 36 said, no, I'm not interested in doing that right now. Really, in my opinion, at the time I hadn't gone to the voters or the people and really divulged into what do they want here in Josephine County. I know we're largely Republican county, but what's the big issue with it? Even though this one's not gonna really change much. The day after that article was written by the Daily Courier, we were on the phone with ICE, inviting them into our jail to come talk to an inmate who was a sex offender, who was an illegal alien. He had 6 months, still has 6 months to serve. And they want to interview and talk to that person about his status, what his immigration status is. Come on in, because I don't want him in Josephine. I don't want him in Josephine County, and I don't want him in the United States of America. Those are the type of inmates that are people, individuals. Maybe they're not even people in that case, but we want them gone. And so I'm not opposed to 105 by any stretch of the imagination. That document I thought was unfortunate because it divided our state.
We're a nation of laws, and you have to stand up and fight for the laws you believe in and fight against the laws that you don't like. Measure 105 is a step. And for somebody to say, well, it doesn't go far enough, so I'm not going to be committed and stand up and fight for it, in my opinion, is a weak-ass position.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, maybe somebody thinks that. Maybe that's real professional way to put that. But you know, at the end of the day, there's also a big picture. A lot of moving parts. Sometimes you just don't get to go one direction. You got to think about the end game, because that's important. It's a business we run, and you got to think about the big picture. That's what I'm doing in that situation. Again, I still support 105. There's no difference in that. It's how you play the game too.
30 seconds.
Great.
Do you have anything to add? No?
I think we're good.
That was
Mr. Bunker. Sorry. Sorry, Bill.
For Sheriff Daniel, have you changed your former position of not hiring female patrol deputies because your earlier statement that you would not hire them created a gender-based complaint that CIS County Insurance is currently settling out of court? Will you now hire female patrol deputies?
Bill, good question. I guess I have to ask you a question, as I don't know when I said that. Do you know? Because I don't ever recall saying that, and that's not how I roll.
CIS says there are 3 people who heard you do that.
How could CIS? How could you even get a CIS report?
None of your business.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, because if those are not released via FOIA requests, I don't know how you would know that. So, irregardless, I never said that. I don't believe that, and that never happened, ever, that I say that. I've hired many female corrections deputies. We had one female in the background process for the last patrol hiring. It didn't work out. So if I'm going to spend $1,000 doing a background on an individual, I think I'm probably going to be pretty willing to hire them should they work through. I really don't know what else to say about that. It's not true.
Sounds like a county.
In the voters pamphlet, there's a statement, and when I saw it, it kind of set me back because I couldn't understand why it would even be in there. But it says, I gotta find it, I have not lost or settled any claims against Josephine County. And I thought, why would somebody put that in there? So I filed a FOIA with the county attorneys, or with the county attorney, and there are multiple cases that have been filed against the sheriff's office, and several cases that are in litigation to be settled. So it was true when it was written, but I believe he knew when he wrote that it wasn't going to be true very long.
Departments are there cases against? Do you have any idea, just in Oregon alone?
Well, I think probably all of them.
Yeah, I'm sure that almost everyone does. But the fact is, when you put something in a voter's pamphlet, that you should be putting the truth. This also says that I've kept every campaign promise I made. One of the campaign promises was I would do an independent audit of the sheriff's office. It didn't happen, but he says it did.
Did you sue your former employer because you didn't get a promotion?
I did.
Yeah, there you go. Helen Black.
So this is
I read, trust me.
no, this is why I really don't like it when candidates slam each other, because then it opens up everybody out here to join in, and then you get a whole night of wasted time. Yes, sir.
We want to know the truth.
Hey, shut up, Paul. It's real simple. Shut the hell up. Yes, sir.
I've heard from the sheriff tonight mention multiple ways that he has, by either, I don't know what you'd call it, creative bookwork or reaching out to the state for funds, but I haven't heard anything like that from you. What would you do to raise funds to get to the 24/7 that you think you can do?
The funds that the sheriff has would have been available to me, they would have been available to Gil, they would have been available to whoever follows us. The marijuana money was going to be awarded to the counties regardless of who the sheriff was. SRS was going to be rewarded regardless of who the sheriff was. The difference is what I would do with it. I wrote a proposal in March, what I would do with SRS. It's school's money. And I said in my proposal that I would have asked the commissioners for $1 million of that. I would have hired the 3 school resource officers at $125,000 each for the $375,000, and I would have put the rest in reserve for the next 5 to 7 years. So I'm thinking long term. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. You can't make money magically appear on a tree. So what you have to do is take the 58 cents per thousand, the 93 cents per thousand, the SRS when you get it, and spend it wisely and not spend it on things that you don't need when you can't put butts in the seat.
Yeah, you know, we have tried to fund wisely. JR, Justice Reinvestment Monies, received that in 2016. It got me about $300,000 from the state. It was just renewed. I'm actually hiring 3 more because I just received some more money from requests to them. What was it? The CJC Criminal Justice Commission. That's the one that oversaw the $600,000 grant, $600,410 grant that we just applied for. But that took a lot of work. That was a lot of work up in Salem. Basically my butt getting handed to me and paddled and spanked back down to Josephine County is what it was. SRS, extending that out, those payments 5 years, so we take, you know, $300,000 a year so we can increase, as opposed to spending it in one lump sum. So we increase the longevity of those. So it is technical, and you do have to do some maneuvering. We have a very good budgets person in our front office right now that really helps us with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, but I'm not exactly sure who I address it to, and it's much minor than this, but we have a cannabis retail store that is just down, it's a retail store that's down from us on Merlin Road. Right next to it is a processing plant for marijuana oil. And I imagine that there's a lot of people who need the oil. So we're not aiming to shut it down or anything, but there is some god-awful noises that come out of that.
And smells.
And smells that are terrible. I don't know who to address it to get it looked at. Who handles it? I mean, it's...
That would probably be a planning department decision, okay? And I don't know if that has a business license. I don't think they're required to, but what are they doing to make the oils? And I think you need to go to planning and ask them to look into that. It's a development project. So I'm thinking that would fall under the planning department. And the question becomes with that hash oil, depending, are they making hash oil or are they making CBD oil? Well, you know, Cave Junction had a big problem with that, where they were doing that with butane. And they wanted to put a couple of those right next to a residential area, so I don't know how that process works, but it needs to be looked into to make sure there's not a health hazard there. But, you know, the smell, I don't know what the smells are, but yeah, that's...
Our neighbors are like within 50 feet of it, and it's just, I mean, right outside of it, all night long.
Well, and that's part of the failure of the past Board of Commissioners not to have time, place, and manner restrictions in place when cannabis became legal. The city of Grants Pass had some in place, and so they still hold up today. No outdoor grows, no manufacturing that puts off that noxious odor. And so the county has failed to put that in. And it's so hard to go in afterwards and change someone who's grandfathered in with their dream of a business, whatever that is, that they can't go back and say, now you can't do it, because they grandfather in. And so the commissioners miss their chance. I want to make sure we're ahead of each thing that comes our way and not wait till 2 or 3 years later to try and impose rules after the fact, like our commissioners are trying to do now. We need to get ahead of the ball on important things like that, because they are a crappy neighbor. And that's too bad, but it's so hard to go now and get them to stop because they grandfather in.
This is a brand new building.
They're still building.
But it still works. They even if it started yesterday, they have no rules in place to regulate that. And they have no code enforcement officers to go after it. And the state is so stretched, they can't get to it. And so it's too late for that one, unfortunately. And so the commissioners have been too weak to get those time, place, and manner restrictions in place to make sure you have good neighbors.
Wouldn't that be a matter of DEQ regulating that because of the air quality?
I think you're on a slippery slope here. Time, place, and manner. Remember now, I'm a property rights guy, okay? And here's the problem we have. This is the business. Have you talked to them? Have you walked over and talked to them?
Yes.
Are they nice to you? Do they deal with it?
Yeah, they said they would take care of it 4 months ago, and they have done nothing.
Okay. Have you complained to planning or code enforcement?
Yeah, that's fine.
That might be worth a phone call to them.
Okay.
But I want to caution everybody in America. This is a serious issue. Private property is under attack in many ways. You can lose your property rights for the endangered species. You can lose your property rights over water. You can lose your property rights over a darn bug. What made America great was the right to own property, control property for your own benefit. As long as what you're doing on your property is not destroying your neighbor's property rights, you should be able to be free to do it. When they did the Declaration of Independence, it was life, liberty, and property. They changed that last clause because of the slavery issue, but it was written originally life, liberty, and property. Do you see how important that was for America's founding?
Exactly.
Be careful where you go on this property stuff, because what you do to your neighbor today may be what gets done to you tomorrow. So I don't want to be ahead of the curve in regulating people's rights to live their lives in freedom. This is you got to watch this. Be careful what you ask for, because tomorrow it may be you that's getting the regulation.
Well, we are a nation of laws, though, and the people are the ones that approve those laws. And that's why we have different flavors. That's why New York is different from Arizona, which is different from California, which is different from Oregon. And Oregon has diversity within the state. We have the blue areas up north, and then we have the rest of the state that still is into individual property rights. But once the county has a vote and makes a decision on something, then that's the one that we go with, because the majority have spoken. If you don't like the rules in that state, you either are in that county, you work to change them, or you move to a different county that has the rules you like. That's the beauty of the fabric of America. We don't all live under the same wide open laws, because it doesn't work that way. People have agreed they want a certain type of neighbor, they want a certain type of community, and they vote for that. And they want that to be enforced. They pay for law enforcement to enforce it. And if they don't like the rules, they have to go in and change them. But you can't just leave everything wide open so that anybody can do anything they want on their property. It doesn't work that way.
Civil regulations. You know, we come here, so we hear how candidates stand on particular issues. Are you for this? Are you for that? What I'm hearing, this is directed to the sheriff and the mayor of Grants Pass. Tax levies and taxing growers at the production level. Are you for it or not? I'm hearing waffling on this issue. Darren Fowler says, well, first I'm for the tax levies. No, cannabis is going to pay for it. Then it's the opposite. The sheriff, the same thing. No, I'm not for this levy, but, you know,
What's the question?
that's the question. What is your position on future tax levies? What is your position on taxing cannabis grows? Yes or no? Nothing in between.
I'd like to get back into the woods. To be honest with you, that's where I'd like to be. I think our patch on our arms in the sheriff's office has a log truck. I told that to Merkley when I cornered him, myself and Sheriff Sickler cornered him up at the SAR building during the middle of the fires that he was letting burn. You know, we need to fix Josephine County. We have a serious problem in Josephine County with an influx of individuals coming into our county with Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, New Jersey, plates. Where do these people come from? Why are they here? They're here for an industry that is not, at least right now, helping our public safety issues that are now coming with these new people. If it's a possibility, yes, Mark. If that's something that would fix and keep these people from either coming, or at least where we can now regulate them and watch them and have some power to enforce laws over them, it's a big issue. I've dealt with the home invasions. I've been at Lake Selmac with the murders, several of them, and it's a problem. I think the industry could help.
And what about the other question, the tax levy?
Oh, as far as property tax?
Future.
Yeah.
Would you support another one? 2 years in,
Boy.
you found no other solution. Would you support another tax levy?
I'm not excited about supporting another property tax levy. I think that well's pretty dry. I don't think the people are really wanting to. I think there are people out there that will, but I think we could find another way. You know, get the commissioners to help us get back in the woods too, or the state legislators. You know, let's find another way if we can. But again, Mark, I said before I didn't want to do the last one, but at the 9th and 10th hour D-Day, man, we were going to go down. So I didn't really have a choice.
A lot of that going around.
Yeah.
Well, like I said earlier in this meeting, I think the levy's right where it should be. That's enough for us to do the services that the citizens have agreed by vote that they are willing to pay for. The dispensary tax, the per plant tax should be on commercial growers. And if the state comes up with the language, I think the people should vote on it, either the entire state or individual counties, whatever structure they set up. But we should vote on that so that we do what is best for the majority of citizens. I don't think we should impose that tax as an ordinance. And I don't even know if we can. But I think that the state is already working on that. And I agree with the idea because we have to find funding from somewhere, and I don't want to have additional property taxes. I think when that levy comes back up in a few years, we should keep it right at the same amount.
So you will support...
No, not back and forth. Just that's what I would do.
Future levy?
The same amount. I said it twice.
Thank you.
That's the third time I've said it.
Yeah. And by the way, you're incorrect in statements regarding the state and cannabis. That is not a
Mark,
true statement.
Enough.
So you can't lie.
Enough.
It's not lying.
That is not state law.
Okay, guess what? You're not running, so when you run, you can mouth all
Right, but
over.
as a citizen,
No,
you want to be
no,
told.
There you go.
Joe, you have a question, and then this gentleman has a question.
For the commissioner candidates, as I'm sitting there listening to this, I'm hearing, in my opinion, two very distinctive views of government. Mr. Smith seems to be less government. Mr. Fowler seems to be a little more government. The reason I asked this question is at the Liberty Watch Forum, you stated you would look at and support possibly moving to a 5-board county commissioner. We know Simon Hare is lobbying to become the county manager and those things. As a taxpayer, I'm tired of you guys reaching into my pocket when we don't have economic development here. My question being to the county commissioner candidates, your 4 years. 4 years from now, do you see county government increasing and costing us more money? Or do you see it decreasing and being streamlined and more efficient to the point where maybe some departments become part-time?
Yeah. I don't know if you weren't here earlier, but I said, it was one of the first questions that I said I don't think it's a good form of government to have a manager. So I'll answer that question twice. But I do think that the people need to vote on those things, and they have. That's why we have a levy for 5 years. Now, what county government does with that money is exactly what you should be watching. Because if they are not building trust with what they're spending that money on, then they're not doing their job. Because they had an opportunity to build trust back in the Audis, the year 2000 to 2010, and they lost the public trust, and they lost their funding, and everything got down to bare minimum. And now they've been working hard, I believe, to try and earn that trust back. Now, whether you think they're doing the right things with spending each and every dollar, that's up to the individual citizens who vote. I am not for bigger government. That's why I got involved, because government was getting too big. I'm a registered Republican. I think it should be laissez-faire. Government should stay out of the way. But they should also make a level playing field for each property owner, for each business owner, and make all of their lives safer. That's the principal job of government, to make their lives safer, not to run their lives and tell them what light bulb to use or what car to drive. And so please don't misrepresent me in saying I want larger government, because that is the furthest thing from the truth. I want efficient, smart government that rules the laws, or interprets the laws in a way that you guys want them to be interpreted. If we're not responsive to you, fire us.
How much government is enough government? How much do you want? We have enough government already. Our problem in the county is based upon our land. It really is. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. Jackson County, Josephine County. Jackson County has a tremendous amount of industrial and commercialized land. We're sitting here talking about economic development in Josephine County. I could take all the industrialized commercial land in Josephine County, put it in one hump, take it to White City and put it on the Boise Cascade lot. It wouldn't even take a quarter of the lot. We're not going to have Ford come here and build the plant. We're not going to have some business come here and build the plant. We need to produce from the ground. I believe that if we'll get out there and we'll allow people to get back into the woods again, to use their private property for cottage industries, we'll have a little agriculture, a little timber, a little mining, and a little cottage industry. We're going to have a good economy. Cannabis and hemp are going to come our way. I think eventually you're going to see that cannabis is legalized nationwide. Are we going to be ahead of the curve, or are we going to be behind the curve? Yeah, there's bad neighbors out there. The problem was we let a lot of people come in from out of state and rush in here and bought every piece of ground they could. It should have been limited to people that were here. It's been here for 40 years, okay? And behind the scenes, it has contributed to the economy, whether you want to admit it or not. Everybody should know this. Don't be childish. Just put a lot of money into economy through the years. But land is the key. We have to, as a rural community, with such a small amount of commercialized or industrialized land, we are forced to produce from the ground. And it doesn't matter. Is that time?
30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. It doesn't matter. Rural communities, that's what they do. They produce the commodities and the goods that the manufacturing cities need to have. That's the problem in America. We're not producing. We have one of the largest cobalt deposits here in the western United States. In the whole darn country, right here in Josephine County. You know where we get our cobalt for our cell phones and our electric cars? The Congos, through slave labor with children labor. What's wrong with that picture?
We do have quite a bit of undeveloped industrial land in Spalding Industrial Park in Grants Pass, at both airports, in the Merlin Industrial Park. They are stopped because they don't have a sewer system out in this area, because they haven't finished the systems that they need in the Illinois Valley. And so there's areas we can do. We're not going to bring Brunswick here to make bowling balls. We are going to offer the boutique businesses a place to thrive and grow. Their employees want to have an adventure. They want to have that river and mountain nearby. And so we really need to work on the tourism side and stop dreaming about cutting trees again. We are fighting for that, but we're fighting an uphill battle. The tourism industry is the way that we have been making money while they wouldn't let us into the forest. And we can continue to enhance that and be that hub of Southern Oregon where people can vacation here and go to Crater Lake, to the coast, the Redwoods. They can go to the hike through the Pacific Crest Trail. They can go down the river. They can go to wineries. They can go do the agritourism. They can do all the things that people really want to do. And so we need to work on that, not try and cut trees.
Yeah.
Ron has his own minute.
Tourism is great. I've been opposing the extreme environmentalists for about 20 years, and they always said, well, ecotourism will save us. Ecotourism will save us. Those people that want to come and see the plants and the flowers will save it. Has it? Has it saved us? Tourism is a great add-on, and I believe it. It's part of my platform. I believe tourism is good. But it doesn't have To be a good tourist attraction, you have to have a draw. So we have the Rogue River. If you can see it through the smoke. We've had so many forest fires, it's killing our industry. Don't tell me about not getting out in the woods and taking care of that forest. That's a garden. That garden will produce everything we need if we help manage it. And we have some help coming out of DC. Now's the time to have a commissioner who understands those issues on that board and bring some balance there instead of having people who are going to focus on Grants Pass.
Yeah, I did my training at Grants Pass, and I live in this county just like you do. And I love this county. So I plan on furthering the fight. I would think it would be great if we can get back into the forest, but it's going to be a slow process. We're fighting our own state as far as population. We're fighting federal law and regulations. And so the dream that that's going to be our golden goose over the next 4 years is not going to happen. But we got to continue that fight. Unfortunately, our previous commissioners didn't fight. They were just taking the payments and saying, oh, it'll always be there. They never started the fight that should have been started then. Finally, it started a few years ago. And they've built a good coalition of Southern Oregon communities and counties to try and do that fight. And now's the time to strike while the iron's hot because of the fires. That's the thing that'll help push this thing into a better forest management and more local input on that management. And with the friendly DC, you bet we have the opportunity. That means we need to keep fighting now.
This is for county commissioners. What I kind of want to understand is, my understanding is the forest fire started, but we don't have fire roads out there, but yet the county has some rights to that. Can you kind of elaborate? Do we have rights to fire roads or we don't?
There's old statutes. There's statutes and laws that require, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Federal Land Management Policy Act, both those laws require that the federal agencies coordinate with the county. In other words, we need to develop our county comprehensive plan the way we want it, that includes forestry or any land uses that are on federal land. And then we need to get those federal agencies to the coordination table so that we can have them implement our plan in their plan. They're getting ready to do the forest plans. Honest to God, the thing that killed our community was the 1994 Northwest Forest Plan, when we decided we were going to manage the whole Northwest Forest for one species, the spotted owl. And it hasn't worked. It's been a miserable failure. So they're getting ready to redraw these forest plans. Now's the time for the county to be prepared for the coordination table. Roads are an issue. I would advocate that we take these roads in the forest that are in strategic location, widen them out, thin them to make fire breaks. Part of the problem these guys had fighting these fires is they couldn't get to the roads. So many roads have been shut down. So many roads are overgrown. So many of them they didn't know where they're at. So why aren't we taking, and I would advocate that we take these roads and make some strategic fire breaks. We're going to have fires. Let's just reduce them and not have them so catastrophic, and let's stop these smoky summers. It's just killing us here. So yeah, roads are an issue, and if you want to know more, I'll be glad to talk about roads with you.
Our loggers were the gardeners of the forest, and they managed them well. But somebody far, far away, Mr. Bill Clinton, changed all that. And we weren't willing to fight for it. I'm not sure why people weren't willing to fight back then. I was busy raising a family. But if we could do that as part of a phased step, say, hey, can we at least get the roads first so we can fight these fires? But that's not the only way to fight fires anymore. They have smaller planes that can do drops with water and retardant that are nimble and can get into these valleys that we're not using here. We need to lengthen the runway here in Merlin so that those could take off from here. We need to get water to that airport so that the helicopters can dip right there at the airport and not keep having to find a spot in someone's backyard or at a river. And that's the way we incremental steps and keep fighting for it. Right now is the time because of the fire's effect on everybody's lives, on tourism, on health and safety. And so we need to gather that data that the Chamber of Commerce is already working on to prove that we are affected by this in a way that is disproportionate to their forest management policies. they have to flex with us. And so it's worth fighting for, but it's going to be an uphill battle. We've got to build consensus and coalitions to fight against that, because just one small county screaming as loud as they can will not be heard. We have to build a strong coalition and fight this thing on all facets, including roads, including longer airport strips, so that those more nimble aircraft can be used here. I couldn't believe that was news to Walden. Dan DeYoung was telling me the other day, he introduced that as a potential way to fight these fires. And he's like, you know, I've heard of those, but I hadn't thought about it as a solution for here. And we're like, come on, that's an obvious one. So I hope they work in that direction, and I will work in that direction.
The problem with our forest fires, and the reason the fires are so catastrophic, is the poor management of the last 25 years. Fires need three things. They need oxygen, they need a source of ignition, they need fuel. The only one of those three we're going to do anything about is reduce the fuels. When you do reduce the fuels, I'm reading a story from a PhD. He was talking about the Sierra Nevada forest. In the 1900s, those forests were 50 to 60 trees per acre. Today we're pushing 150 to 250 an acre. There's our problem. We have too many
30
trees.
seconds.
We have too many trees. And we have some help coming out of the Department of the Interior, the Department of Agriculture. They want to increase logging. So now's the time to really think about how we're going to reduce these catastrophic wildfires, cut down the smoky summers, help our tourism, put some money in there to fund our sheriff. Just the dead trees, 10% of these dead trees will fund the sheriff. My friend of mine talked to a Forest Service guy after the Biscuit Fire. $1 trillion worth of timber left to rot. $1 trillion.
Yeah, that is obvious that we have not been managing the forest well. That's why there's so much tinder out there. But it's the way we identify where the lightning strikes are and how we decide to fight the fires. The state is like having to ask everyone first, should we go fight this? Should we go fight this? Should we go fight this? And we're like, no, you don't ask, you just go. And I think there's an idea that sounded silly at the first but was growing on me. Why don't we put some lightning rods on some of these naked mountaintops and try and get the lightning to hit a little less often in the middle of a bunch of trees and tinder? I mean, how hard of a solution would that be to send those same firefighters out in January to try and set up an old cell phone tower or something unused, recycle it into lightning rods so that at least half of those lightning bolts wouldn't hit the darn forest and we wouldn't have to fight so many at once?
I wanted to ask your opinion between the commissioners and the sheriffs. There is a homeless advocacy group that's been formed in Colorado and in California and in Oregon. And they have pushed, and there was a bill that was presented to the legislature for the homeless to be able to camp in parks. And so far, it's not going through. They're putting it kind of on the back burner. I just want to know what your opinion would be if they passed that.
I have compassion for the homeless, but it's a nationwide problem. Are we going to do what San Francisco allowed, defecation and urination in public streets? I don't think so. Seattle has allowed them to use their parks and their underpasses. It's turned into a nightmare in a zoo. Businesses are leaving Portland because the homeless are camping on their doorstep. This is a nationwide problem. And I think you could probably cast the blame at the last administration as part of the problem because of the economic downturn we had. I think that's beginning to turn around. Historically, what helped the homeless was the private sector. It was churches. It was the charities. But nowadays we've adopted the attitude that government is the end-all, know-all. We run the government like mommy. Why is government the one that's going to take care of us? Let's take care of ourselves. Let the churches come back to what they're supposed to be. Let the charities be what they're supposed to be. Let the families take care of their homeless. If the families won't even take care of their homeless, maybe the guy's got a real problem and needs some mental help. I don't know. But you got to look right back at meth and heroin in this county. That's a big source of our homeless problem. It's a big source of our crime. I'm going to keep talking about the meth and heroin because I don't think it gets enough attention. It's a serious issue.
totally drew a blank. What was your question? Oh, the homelessness in the parks. Sorry. I don't know where that came from. When we talk homelessness, there's a difference between vagrancy and homelessness, and I really want to separate the two. Because if you are homeless because of circumstances, because you lost your job, because part of your family left and left you destitute, then we got to try and help that separately than those transients that are sucking off our society and messing up our streets, sleeping in doorways. But we are a community that struggles to fund basic services, so we are way too small to be offering things like you're suggesting. That's Eugene can offer up blocks downtown. Portland can offer the sides of freeways and off-ramps. Seattle can offer any place under the sun. But I don't think it's our place to offer anywhere for those transients to hide, because they will sneak into what you call homeless. And, oh yeah, I'm homeless too. No, you've chosen to live in the cracks of society, and we're not going to help you. If you are truly homeless, then I have compassion, and I want to find a way to help you. And there are actually services out there to help those people, and we should work on that and be diligent to make sure we're helping, not enabling people to live in the cracks.
Yeah, the vagrancy issue is definitely, look where we live. We're an I-5 corridor town. We go up and down, I see them all the time. They're at the exit 55, they're at the 58, they're at the 61, and it's a real problem. But I do agree with Mr. Fowler that sometimes it's a I want to type of an issue as opposed to I have to type of an issue. And that's really where we have to delineate and draw that line. I actually agree with Mr. Smith as well too with his statements. So I don't, in the interest of time, I know we're running low. I think I'll leave it at that and call it good.
I think that's a hard one to argue with any of these gentlemen over. I worked for the Salvation Army for 15 years, and I understand the homeless issue and needing to have shelters and places for them to go, especially as winter comes upon us. Not necessarily the job of the sheriff's office, but it is the job of the community, of the churches, of the nonprofits to get together and to coordinate and find out something that we can do. But I'm not in favor of putting them in the parks. We pay for our parks. We have pride in our parks. Our parks draw people. We talk about tourism. If we're going to have homeless camps in the Indian Mary and all of these parks, your tourists are not going to come there. You're not going to want to go there for your family weekends and picnics and barbecues. So our parks are not the place for them. But we do have to work on finding a place.
No one said that this is going to go until 8:30, but I want the candidates all to have a 3-minute closing. So is there anybody out there that has a very important question? Yes.
No pressure.
So, you started about the homelessness. So, the ordinance 2018-003, which is had the second reading that will 90 days go into effect, is pretty much about the transient and the homeless / affordable housing, which to me is two different areas. You're not going to get somebody who's a transient or chronic homeless buying affordable housing even at $200,000. You're not going to find that. The 2018 is taking on some of it, says that they're going to take, so on a private piece of property could have as many as 13 people on their property in lean-tos or tents or whatever like that. My feeling is that the commissioners are taking their problem out of their backyards, which is the county parks, which is the county businesses, which is county pathways, and putting into the citizens' backyard. So I understand that the last reading I was at, that Simon Harris said they take it back. I also heard commissioners say that they felt it was an urban issue. And so, yes, so I'm just wondering how you're standing on that as far as, again, bringing the homeless transits into our citizens' backyard.
Yeah, I was at the meeting for the first reading of that, and I got up and had to speak because they were opening the door too wide. We're trying to address affordable housing, and I think having accessory dwelling units, the under 1,000 square feet for rental or mother-in-law or kids to stay in is a great solution. But I think having 15 little sheds with no plumbing and no electricity is not the way to go. You're not going to be a good neighbor with that setup. And if that gets enacted, I'm going to work hard to get it back the other way before too many of those start up. Because you're going to have trimmigrants filling them, and they're going to be snaking in extension cords and peeing on the ground. It's not a good way to solve the problem. Like it was said earlier, the cities can make apartments and housing authorities make them affordable, but that's only for the ones that are really homeless. I do not want transients to have a free ride anywhere. And so I really think that if that passes it in its entirety, that it's a terrible law, that we should have taken gentle steps towards do the ADUs, allow the hardship cases to continue, but don't open up to 15 shanty buildings on your neighbor's property that you have to drive by. I mean, come on, that's the worst solution I've ever heard.
Yeah, a huge public safety problem. Sorry, Ron, a huge public safety problem right there. You're talking about building a compound for people that necessarily aren't going to be interested in paying taxes or even pay taxes. What a drain. We already have those, ladies and gentlemen. We have them in our planning department, over almost 1,000 of them, to be honest with you, in different homes and dwellings that are problem properties for us. I keep it short. Do not agree with anything like that happening in Josephine County.
I was not in favor of that either. I don't think it's a solution. If you're talking about affordable housing, I'm going to say it again because this is the way the state law is written. That's going to be taken care of by Grants Pass and Cave Junction. Affordable housing. He's actually out there in Cave Junction. They're doing a project like that where he's putting up duplexes so you actually buy half a house, and they're reasonably priced. First thing you got to have affordable housing, you got to have a job that pays you. That's the problem we have here. We just don't have enough jobs that are paying people a family wage job. Years ago we had those. I remember people who raised their whole family for decades off of one sawmill out there. Have you ever considered what one tree, from the time that the Forest Service marks that tree to the time it's put in a house, how many jobs that creates along the way? That's the kind of thing we need in our county in order to have the money and the jobs for people to afford housing. Quit with the free stuff. I was reading an article where there's millions of Africans that got their eye on America and they plan on coming here legally or illegally just because of the free stuff. Just quit the free stuff. I think my good book says if you don't work, you don't eat. So go out and work. So I don't think the county did a right thing there. I really didn't like it at all because it's like the sheriff said. You start putting these 15 homes down. What about sanitation? I don't think it's going to fly. I got the letter back. I got to print this on the planning commission.
30 seconds.
I got the letter back. The state was not really keen on what they were trying to do, and I think it's going to get shot full of holes. But the answer to solving our affordable housing in Grants Pass and in Cave Junction through building apartments. A Riverwoods apartment, the biggest complex in Grants Pass, was bought by a California outfit. They raised the rent overnight. I got several calls from people saying, hey, I'm going to have to leave here and I don't know where I'm going. Problem is we're not building apartment units, we're building $350,000 homes.
So we're talking two different kinds of properties, and I agree. We don't need shanties and a row of tiny houses and stuff that grows in your residential neighborhoods for the immigrants to come in and live in, any more than we need to set them up in the back of Walmart for Walmart's employees or Fire Mountain for their employees or anybody else's employees. On your private property, I have a different position. I have 11 acres. It's out in the county. It's far away from everybody else. If I want to build a guest house, I should be allowed to build a guest house. Current Oregon law doesn't allow it. I would like to see the county commissioners take a stand on that and say if you want a mother-in-law suite or a guest suite that's not a full-time resident thing on your house, it should be your property and you should be able to develop it as you see fit, as long as you don't put a negative impact on your neighbors.
Closing. Let's close and go home.
Start at that end.
Start at that end.
Excuse me.
Yes.
You said 3 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm passionate about what I believe in. And when I came to run for sheriff, I was passionate that I wanted to do top quality law enforcement for the citizens of Josephine County and the employees of the Josephine County Sheriff's Office. And somebody mentioned, you know, didn't you sue your employer? Absolutely right, I did. When your employer violates their own policies and rules and does things that hurt the employees in the organization, somebody has to take a stand. I'm the guy that took a stand. The office knew 2 years before I was retiring, I was retiring. I gave my date 2 years in advance. So they drug it out until I retired and I settled. But there are people still fighting the fight in Maricopa County to fix what was a broken policy. And we've done it. That's what I'll do for Josephine County. Find a policy that's broken, fight for it. I don't give up. I'm not worried about it. Sheriff Joe Arpaio supports me. He didn't think this was a personal attack against him. And I have the passion to believe that if I believe in something, I'm going to fight for it. And I believe that I will be the best sheriff that you're going to get this electoral season based on qualification, education, and experience. So if you're willing to fight to get me elected, I'm willing to fight to provide you the best sheriff's office that I can.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak at this forum and to meet all of you. I hope that, thank you for letting us bring in our signs and stuff. There was a citizen that brought in a sign that I don't think should be back there according to your decorum rules. So I wish you'd take that out. My plan as county commissioner is to fight for more revenue for criminal justice, but not from property taxes only. We have to receive a larger portion from the cannabis industry, whether through dispensary taxes at the state or taxing at the grow sites. I plan to continue addressing the problem of accessible housing so that there is a way for people to get back on their feet. Like we have done at the city, we're working on that now. We need to have, I think we need a tourism advisory committee at the county to try and promote our community, to seize the day, to become that hub of Southern Oregon. And I also plan to continue the fight against the epidemic of meth and heroin addiction like we have at the city, and all that related criminal activity. We've done a sobering center, a methadone clinic, and supported the local treatment programs. I do want to announce a schedule of opportunities to meet with each of you. I don't want to give the whole schedule because of time, but every Saturday until the election, I'll be at the Riffle Cafe from 8 to 9 o'clock. Come on in and say hello. Ask me anything you want. Let's talk. You can find the schedule on my Facebook page as well. We do live in one of the best areas of our state, and I think one of the best areas of the country. We all chose to live here and raise our families here, and I think it's worth fighting for. That's why I'm running for county commissioner. When others said we would never rise from the lowest point years ago, but we have. We have through hard work and finally electing people that you trust. There are still some things to address, and we need to deal with them as diligently as possible. So help me fight for you as your next county commissioner.
Yeah, thank you for hosting us here. I really appreciate it. It's a good opportunity for everybody to get to know us just a little bit better. 24 years in law enforcement. Really important that, basically almost 24 within a month or two. Really important that 18 of those 21 right here. I raised my family here. This is home. I want it to be home. I ran for office again because it was in a bad way. And it's not in a bad way anymore. Morale was the lowest that I'd ever seen it since 1995 in the sheriff's office. Sometimes sheriff's offices are difficult because there's a lot of transition, a lot of change, a lot of administrative, new sheriffs come, new old sheriffs go. This one's on the right path. This one's going down the railroad tracks and it's humming. And I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to go another 4 years, maybe even longer, if we continue in the right direction. I'm locating funds. I'm creating opportunities for people to get into different divisions and different districts, do different jobs, and that's exciting. We're still growing. We're not leveling out here yet in Josephine County. Our sheriff's office is coming back. I'd say we are back, but we're not where we should be yet. The sheriff's office is not where it should be yet. We need those 24-hour patrols. I need a detectives division. I guess I got school resource deputies now. We're getting those hired up. I just put resident deputies out in the field so we can start working geographically within our communities smarter. I started my career with community order and policing with the City of Grants Pass. I did the same thing when I went to the state police, and now as the sheriff, I'm bringing it back. Because the citizens deserve that deputy that they can talk to for a little bit of time. Create the livability issues. Solve the livability issues. Some liaison for the sheriff's office. Some of those calls that we normally couldn't go to in the past, we're handling those calls now. 24/7 right now is dangerous for us. We could be potentially be taking a step backwards, and I don't know that that's a good move. But at the same time, I'm making moves to where we can get out there on the nighttime patrols. And those can happen. Those can happen. I can't promise them within a year. I don't know when I can promise them, but it's certainly a goal of ours. You talk about an individual who really wants this. That's me. Not because for fame, and I'm for fortune. I could go work in another city or municipality for a lot more money, excuse me. And I could, but I don't want to. I want to finish what I started. I need another 4 years to do that. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me and giving me a chance to meet everyone out here. And I have been with the clerk's office for 12 years, like I said earlier, and I feel that I am the best candidate for the job. I have the experience and the dedication. I love going to work every day. There's just lots of new things that come up, and I'm continuing my education. I'm part of the OACC, which is the Oregon Association County Clerks. And I just really ask for your vote come November 6th. And just a couple things, that voters pamphlets are being dropped in the mail by the Secretary of State's office next week, starting on the 9th. So look for those. And then if you need to change your registration or update, or if you're not currently registered, the cutoff is October 16th, and ballots are going to be dropped in the mail on October 17th. Thank you.
Well, I want to tell everybody my literature is out in the back over there, and I want to see clerk who is fair and impartial and who will follow the law. I think I'm the best candidate for that. I'd like to see more transparency in allowing the citizens to scrutinize the whole election process for maximum security. We could televise the ballot area with live streaming so that in the evenings everybody, when they get up in the middle of the night, can look and say, yeah, nobody's monkeying around with our ballots. I'd like to be able to use a video to help oversee the signature verification process. Those people who want to come in and look at the process, we could do that very easily remotely in the office there. I'd like to see more accountability. I'd like to see a citizens review board established. That's a volunteer. They could hand count selected precincts that they select to make sure that they validate the true counts that the clerk's office does. And I'd like to see more fairness. We need a clear clerk who will serve the citizens in an equitable way. That means even application of the law for everyone, both in government and not in government. You know, I've been an advocate for the citizens of Josephine County for over a decade, and it's been proven that I can't be bought off by special interest groups or pressured to look the other way at injustice. Please encourage your family, your friends, your neighbors to participate in all aspects of our election process, because an active, informed electorate is still the best safeguard of the democratic process in our republic. So please consider voting Sandy Casanelli for county clerk. Thank you.
I'm Ron Smith, candidate for Josephine County Commissioner, Position 1. I've been fighting for your property rights in this county for a long time. I've been fighting for our rights to access our public land. I'll do the same as a commissioner. I'm not going to change. I'm not a politician. I'm here to serve the people of Josephine County, to listen to their needs, to their wants, and to make sure that their will is expressed through county government. I don't believe government needs to be big. I believe it needs to be responsive and open to the people. At the local level, this is a government you can touch. This is a government that you can make a difference in. We're not going to change DC by this handful of people in this room, but you can change county government. So I've been an advocate for your rights to have freedom, to have your property uninhibited, and for you to go out and make a living. I'm going to continue to be your person in the county commissioner, working for all the people of Josephine County, from the Illinois Valley to Merlin to Wolf Creek. Not just the city, but the whole county. That's what the job description is, county commissioner, not city council. And I will represent all the people in the county. So I'm asking for your votes this November. Ron Smith, Josephine County Commissioner, position 1. Thank you.